What is something you can no longer enjoy due to a bad experience? I used to love chicken tikka. An ex-co-worker went through a period of not washing for several days at a time and the smell was really close to chicken tikka. The smell of chicken tikka now makes me feel sick. Apple juice. Spent too much time in hospitals growing up and every meal was served with apple juice. Any pre-prepared food with any kind of shellfish. When I was 8 I had a bowl of cream of crab soup that didn't have a piece of shell removed. Had rectal bleeding and minor surgery for a small hole. Never gonna trust it again. Fake cherry smell. I can do cherry candies, but the air freshener type cherry scent triggers the worst visceral reaction. I start sweating, heart races, and I immediately start prepping to throw up. When I was 5 I had to have a tonsillectomy. It was in the early 90s and they knocked you out with gas. Because I was a kid, they let me pick the flavor of kids masks. The nurse who prepped me for surgery probably thought I wouldn't remember, but she smashed the mask over my nose and mouth and held me down while I struggled until the gas knocked me out. There have only been a few times where I've smelled that again and I react the same way every time. Hot dogs. 15 hours flight. 3 days of food poisoning. I cannot eat hot dogs or plain food under any circumstance. Eating bananas. Me and my friend were at lunch and as he bit into his banana it crunched. He looked at it and the center of the banana was infected with a red crunchy fungus. This ruined bananas for me. Orange Gatorade. That's my go-to flu or food poisoning drink. It ruins it for me outside of that. When I was 15 I decided one night when I was bored and alone to eat at the French restaurant near my house. This was the first time I'd been to a proper restaurant without my parents, so I was sort of excited. Everything was going well until the waiter asked if I would like a bread roll with my entree. Being new to this sort of thing and not exactly flush with cash I asked, "Is it free?" Well, it was like I called his grandma a whore because he got really angry and launched into a big speech, swinging his arms everywhere, about how nothing is free in life blah blah blah. I finished my meal there, but I've never eaten at a French restaurant since. If invited out to one I make excuses. Gingermeister. Had a really bad experience once. If I even just smell black licorice my mouth will start to salivate like I'm going to vomit Exorcist style everywhere. Going out and having a drink alone. Got drugged. Almost died. Now I only drink if I'm at home. Roller coasters with loops but specially untamed at Canopy Lake Park. Went on it 3 years ago and leaned forward on the loop. The momentum caused me to hit my head on the shoulder harness and black out for a few seconds. The concussion after that was brutal. Domino's pizza. I got a mouthful of clumped hair when I bit into a slice. I hate hair in my food. It's one of my gross out factors that will kill my appetite. With that pizza, I brushed it off the best I could because I was starving and grabbed another slice. Mouthful of hair again. I had to pick long strands of hair out of my teeth. No more Domino's. It was probably an isolated incident, but now my brain equates Domino's with hairy pizza and I can't order from them anymore. Eggo waffles. Ate them every morning before late elementary and middle school. I was never a morning person, so shoving frozen waffles covered in butter and maple syrup at 6 AM while horribly underslept was never enjoyable. And now I can't eat them because I flash back to the general feeling of dread from every morning. I can still feel the knots in my stomach. Watch any Godzilla movie. When I was 8 years young my mother rented the movie Godzilla that I was waiting for months to see. She played the movie and leave the room. She went out to buy groceries. Turns out it wasn't Godzilla. It was hardcore porno movie that the renter misplaced and I watched the first half confused because I thought at some point I was going to see Godzilla. Then my mother came back from the store and realized what happened. She went back to the movie store to storm it I believe. Chili. One night I ate it for dinner and later threw it up in bed. To this day I don't know my reasoning, but in my drowsy state I decided to just go back to sleep and I woke up laying in a mix of vomit, chunks of meat, and beans. Taco soup. This lady made it for us but found out later she has horrible cooking habits like cross-contaminating cooked chicken and shredding it on the same board you had it raw, or using long expired taco seasoning and who knows what else. I got food poisoning and puked it all up. The horrible smell I can just think about and get nauseated. Thankfully I can still eat regular tacos, but taco seasoning outside of actual tacos I cannot do. Any type of food that looks like it should be soft or mushy. X. Mashed potatoes. Because too many times I've taken a bite and been met with something not soft or mushy hiding inside. Seriously, it makes my heart race just thinking about it. Smoking weed. I was 17. Smoking in my friend's room he was renting from a man named Juan Carlos, and all of a sudden a SWAT team came and busted down the door and looked around at a couple of white kids, us, and said, "None you look like Juan Carlos," then proceeded to empty my bag, and needless to say, I super high and freaked out. Ever since then, I get that same feeling when smoking weed. Playing the violin. I was in 6th grade and just started to learn the violin. My family didn't make much, but my mom saved some money to rent a violin for me. I go to the class and the teacher was under the impression that I knew the basics, which I didn't. I did take a class before this one, but I didn't learn much from it, probably cause I was a crazy kid. So I try to tell the teacher that I have no idea where the notes on the violin are, but he just didn't get it. Then we get a quiz where we have to play the scale, and one by one each student plays it and he remarks after each one, "Good job, A+. Now it's my turn. I tried my best but I couldn't do it." My teacher said, "Well, that was not good," and continued on. Needless to say, I joined choir the next day. Cliff jumping. Bit part of my tongue off because I accidentally had my mouth open after realizing I was making a beeline towards a large rock. Thankfully I missed it by about 2 to 3 feet, but the nub of my tongue did not survive. Luckily it grew back because the chip was barely small enough to where it could heal. Extremely lucky things didn't end up worse for me that day, but you can rest assured I'm never doing that again. Strawberry Pop-Tarts. That's the only thing we had besides MREs on an outpost in Afghanistan for a month. I can't look at one without feeling sick. In 1981, when I was 15, I was seduced by a man twice my age, and had sex for the first time. He ducked me without using a condom. Why would you use a condom if you're having gay sex? And at the time, it was the greatest feeling I ever had. Until, only a few months later, there were stories about GRID, gay-related infectious disease, now AIDS. I convinced myself that I had to have contracted it, and was scared to death that I was going to die. I went so far into the closet I entered Narnia, and didn't have sex for another 10 years. Finally, test became available, and I found out I was HIV. I was relieved, but I was still reticent to both coming out as a gay man, and to having sex. Finally, when I went into Peace Corps, I decided this had to stop. I came out as being gay, and life changed for me. Yes, I did have a bad experience, but I now enjoy sex. But for 10 years of my life, I was scared to death from it. Most of the Taco Bell menu when I mixed it with copious amounts of alcohol and later found it on my back porch. I'm glad my drunk ass never ordered anything I actually liked. Apple cider. Drank too much once and threw up. Whenever I drank apple cider after that point it makes me feel nauseous, as I can never forget that taste. Grim stuff. I took an art class in middle school that I really loved until a guy started pinning me against a sink in the supply room and groping me. I wasn't particularly skilled. It was just something I enjoyed until he ruined it. Cossacks is ruined for me. One time had a cop pull up next to the car. Can't come back from that one. Whoppers. A few years ago Burger King came out with this spooky Whopper, with a black bun that supposedly tasted like A1 sauce. I remember walking 6 blocks to the nearest Burger King after I just found out I got a new job because I wanted to celebrate. It seems weird, I know, but I was broke and Whoppers held a special place in my heart because they reminded me of some fun times when I was a kid and my mom used to sneak them when we went to the movies. Plus, it was something that sounded interesting. It was disgusting. I made it about halfway through when I felt the sudden urge to vomit. It did not taste like a Whopper. It did not taste like A1 sauce. The closest thing I could compare the flavor to is when I was a kid and was dared to bite into an eraser. I will say that the reported effect of that whopper turning your poop green was very much real and pretty comical, but was not worth the disgusting taste. I only had like half of it, most of which I threw up, and it still did that. I didn't even have the entire thing, but it sort of ruined whoppers for me because since then they give me an upset stomach, which sucks because I really liked them. Pink Floyd, which super crushes me. An abusive ex was super into them. I'll try again in a few years. One particular female name. I used to love it. Always thought I'd name my daughter this name if I had one. Then a woman with this name tried to start an affair with my, thankfully oblivious, husband. Sent him provocative photos under the guise of "Do you think guys like these types of photos from women?" Asked him what he liked in bed and how she just happened to love those same things. etc. It ruined the name for me. It makes me irrationally angry every time I hear that name now, which makes me even more mad because I loved the name for so long. Orange soda. When I was pregnant I had to do a glucose test. I needed to drink this orange drink. It tasted like straight orange syrup. It was the worst. Now anytime I taste orange soda it's all I can think of. I can't play Overwatch anymore. If I try to, I just get really depressed and will probably start sobbing by the end of the night. RIP the closest friend I ever had. Carried me for 4 seasons. Best Winston main I've ever met. Walking. My leg had to be amputated. The sea. I used to love swimming all day, but one day I almost drowned when I was a kid. It was never the same afterwards. Dating new people. Got sexually assaulted. Tried to have sex with a new person after and almost vomited and went home and cried despite the fact that there was consent. Thankfully, my now boyfriend is also one of my childhood friends and knows what happened to me. For whatever reason, I don't get the PTSD with him. Even getting a hug from men I don't know well makes me want to kill them. But with him, I feel safe and he's one of the few people that could hold me. One of the better coffee shops in my town. I went there on a date with a guy in high school, then was assaulted by him in the parking lot. Loving people with all my heart. Found a cockroach in my Burger King of my home country, Cochabamba, Bolivia. There the health regulations are not as good as here in the US, so I couldn't do much, but that did pretty much make me hate Burger King. Omelets. I ate one while somewhat nauseous as a 6-year-old. Immediately had to be sick. Now I can't even handle the scent of them. Movie Armageddon. Had a first time with an ex during that movie and could never watch it again afterwards. Tequila. Can't even stand the smell after a whole bottle intoxication. Honestly, it's gotten kinda weird after our mom walked in on us. Bacon. Since I saw a YouTube video of a pig helping a dog get through a doggy door. Pigs are smart. Pigs are also tasty. Sleep. For 5 years I endured episodes of sleep paralysis so bad, up to 4 days a week, that I was afraid to go to sleep. Not only would I experience paralysis, but I would hear snarling and growling. I would feel like I was on fire, and I would see tall dark figures in the corner of my room and I felt like they were strangling me. Note, I was very anxious and depressed at the time. It was a vicious cycle. Things are better these days. Using a mandolin after slicing off the top of my finger. There was a band I loved, and I mean loved. One night I went to a concert after waiting years to see them. I was 19. After the gig one of their roadies asked me and my friends if we wanted to meet them, which we said yes because we were such big fans. So naive. When we got backstage one of the roadies pointed at a room and told me to go in there because the lead singer wanted to meet me. Anyway, he locked the door and proceeds to do things even though I told him to stop. I couldn't get to my friends because there was a party going on in the room next door and they couldn't hear me, and he had locked the door. I have never been able to listen to their music since. This was also 15 years ago, so way before Me Too or things like that, so I just blamed myself for not knowing any better. I just genuinely thought they wanted to meet a fan. I learned ADR at film school. What they will do is if the film was shot in a place that was too noisy, they re-record the actors' lines later in a studio and put it back on the visuals. If it's not done right, the actor's mouth doesn't line up quite right with the spoken dialogue, That ruined movies and TV shows for me because now I notice any ADR that is poorly done and I can't concentrate on the movie. Maybe that wasn't really due to a bad experience, but I no longer enjoy many movies and TV shows. Cool Ranch Doritos. Adding it to liqueur did that. Hiking. Physically I can't anymore. Got crushed in an accident. Most of my standy-up bones have metal bits and bobs now. Used to enjoy reading. Head injury makes it difficult to remember where I left off. Used to like getting dressed up and going out. Fancy clothes don't fit thanks to all the disfigurements from that accident. Playing frisbee with my dog. Ex used to yell at her and throw the disc right at her face. She's terrified of frisbees now. Don't worry though. She still loves belly rubs. Palm Springs, CA. It's a gay resort town in SoCal. On my first trip there I managed to have hookups with 2 different guys that tried to go into child rape fantasies mid-hookup. I have never kicked someone out of my place faster before or since. I have had many people ask me to take trips back there since. But I can't get over the I ran into 2 pedophiles in one weekend vibe. Pear cider. Was out with some friends and a few of us were drinking it. We all decided to also casually head home. We lived close so got a taxi back together and I urged the driver to hurry because we didn't feel good. At this point they also said they didn't feel good either. Well, we all had the world's worst diarrhea. Seriously, is that the worst word to spell ever? I spent the night at home on the toilet and those other 2 were housemates with only one toilet in the house, so one of them ended up eating in the garden. We don't drink pear cider anymore. Publix Deli Southern Potato Salad. Because I got a terrible case of food poisoning from it and haven't had any since. The Strokes. They were my favorite band, so a friend and I got tickets to see them at a festival around 2014. We stood in the hot LA sun all day sweating our asses off in this massive crowd of aggressive assholes just so we'd have a good spot when they came on stage. Whole crowd was shoulder to shoulder and chest to back. They came on 20 minutes late, left 20 minutes early, and didn't have an encore. No talking between songs. No audience engagement. Just 9-10 songs that sounded exactly like the stuff on their records. Even all the solos were the same. Haven't really listened to them since then. Marijuana. Started inexplicably having massive panic attacks, heart palpitations every time I smoked, and since then even the tiniest hit sends me into a total panic. Really sucks. Fireball whiskey.